Hey guys, this is Miss Boland, and today we're going to be multiplying monomials and polynomials. Okay, when we multiply a monomial, and remember that's something that does not have an expression or an operation in it, and if we had an example like 6y to the third power times 3y to the fifth power, we multiply the monomials. We're going to do the same thing that we did in our exponent unit, which we are just going to multiply the numbers. So that would give us 18. And when you multiply with the powers, we're going to add them. So you'd have y to the third and y to the fifth, and that would become y to the eighth power. Okay, here's another example that I want you guys to copy down, and it's multiplying monomials. Notice how there's no addition or subtraction sign in between. We're just multiplying these. And with these, we are going to group together the numbers. So if you go ahead and write it down, we're going to group together the numbers. So we have 1/3 times 12, which anytime you multiply a fraction by a whole number, all you're basically doing is dividing. So 12 divided by 3. And that's going to give us a 4. And then we're going to combine all the x's. So x squared and then x to the third power, that's going to give us x to the fifth power. Because remember, when we multiply the numbers, we add the exponents. And the y up here has an exponent of 1. So now I can combine the y's. So I'd have y to the fifth power. And then the z's, I can combine the z's, and then I would have z to the seventh power. And that would be simplified. Okay, next we're going to multiply the polynomial times a monomial. So in doing this, we are going to distribute. So we would distribute this 4 to each one of these terms. Okay, so 4 times 3x squared, you'll have 12x. And then 4 times 4x, you'll have 16x. And then 4 times -8 is going to give you -32. And this is in standard form because it's the higher degree first, 2, 1, and then 0. Okay, next we're going to learn how to FOIL, and this is how we multiply binomials. Okay, and when do we know when to FOIL? This is when we're going to FOIL. If it looks like a variable plus a number times a variable plus a number. So I would FOIL this. It can also look like, v plus 6 and then a 2v minus 3. So as long as you have a variable plus a number and a variable plus a number, then you can use the FOIL method. Okay, since I've already explained to you when you FOIL, now I'm going to explain to you what FOILing actually is. Okay, FOILing stands for first. And that means you're going to multiply the first term. Outer. Then you multiply the outer terms. Inner. That means you multiply the inner terms. And last. That means you multiply the last terms. Okay, so let's start with this example. We have x plus 3 times x plus 2. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the first terms, and that's the first terms in each parenthesis. So for the first term, I'm going to do x times x. Well, x times x is x squared. Okay, next I have the outer term, and that's the term on the outside. I'll multiply those together, and I have Okay, the outer term is 2 times x, and that's just going to equal 2x. And my inner term is 3 times x, which is 3x. And then my last term, sorry, this was my inner term. And then my last term, putting a star next to, those are my last terms. And that is going to be 3 times 2, which is 6. And the formatting for this, your first term is usually going to be something squared, like how we have here. Your outer and inner term is usually going to have an x with it, and it's either going to they're either going to cancel each other out, or you're going to have to combine them. And your last term is usually going to be a constant. Okay, then you put all of that together. So your polynomial that you're going to end up with would be x squared, and then you would add these two together. So it would be plus 5x, and then plus 6. Notice how I say plus because these are positive. If these were negatives, then they'd be negatives in our problem. So this is how we FOIL. If we were to do another problem, but instead of the variable being x, if we used an s, we would work this out the same way. We would FOIL these, okay? So what I want for you to do is I want you to pause the video and FOIL this out, and then I want you to check it with mine when you're finished. Okay, so what you should have done, and you can also do, okay, so last time I put everything in a line and I multiplied it out, but you can also do the same process. So you can do the foiling method, but you can actually like draw lines from each and then just write it out as you multiply. So s times s would be s squared, and then outer would be s times negative 2, and that would be negative 2s, and then inner would be 4 times s, so plus 4s. And then last term would be a 4 and a negative 2, which would be a negative 8. So I know I can combine these because they have like terms, so my final answer would be s squared. Negative 2s plus 4s is going to give me a positive 2s minus 8. So this is our answer, and if you got this right, then you are super duper smart. Okay, and we are going to try a more complicated one. Okay, for my next example, instead of just having a variable, I now have it 8m squared minus n, and then I'm multiplying this by m squared minus 3n. Okay, and I'm going to use the FOIL method, and that means that I'm going to multiply my first term, okay, and when I multiply that together, you have to keep in mind that we are going to add the exponent. So I will have 8m to the 4th, and then I am going to multiply the outer term, which I have that 8m squared, and then the 3n. So when I multiply that, I'm going to multiply the 8 and then negative 3, which is going to give me negative 24. And then I have the m squared and the n, and I can't combine those, so I'm just going to leave them. So you just kind of just multiply the numbers, and then you just write m squared and then n. You can't do anything else with it. You can't combine it. They're two different letters. Okay, and then now I'm going to multiply the inner part. So these are my inner parts. And you know, look at these. They're not the same letter. So again, I'm just going to have to write it out, m squared and then n. And it's okay, like if you have it written differently, say you had the n's first, you know, for this it's okay. And then next, our last term, we have negative n and then a negative 3n. So when you multiply negative 1 basically times a negative 3, you're going to get a positive 3n squared. And it's n squared because we have those two n's. Okay, now I can combine what's the same, which the middle's the same. This actually has an imaginary 1 right there. They're the same because you have an m squared and the n next to each other. And we already know, remember that the outer and inner are the same. So I'll have the 8m to the 4th, which I can't do anything with because I don't have another m to the 4th power. But I can combine these and I get negative 25 m squared n plus 3n squared. And that's a more complicated problem, and you won't have a lot of those, but you just need to make sure that you're able to recognize when you do multiply or FOIL that you are adding those exponents. Okay, for my next 3 problems, these are problems that are going to be on your homework. These are the first 3 problems, and then you'll do the last 5 for homework on your own. So I'll start off by FOILing the first 3. So the very first thing you're going to multiply is you're going to do the first, the outer, the inner, and then the last. Okay, so we're going to do first, which would give us x squared. And then you're going to do the outer. Okay, and that's going to get us negative negative 48x. And then the inner 3 times x, and that's going to give us negative 3x. And I'll put outer and inner so that you remember this. And then the last negative 3 times negative 16. Oh, that's plus. I'm sorry. I didn't see that plus. So this would be plus 3x, and this would be a plus, because it was plus. 3 times negative 6 is going to give us a negative 18. So remember, I can combine the middle, and then I would have 8x squared minus 45x minus 18. And that would be my answer. Okay, for my next problem, I have the first, which is x times 4x. So it's going to give me 4x squared. That's my first term. And then my outer, x times 7. And that's going to give me plus 7x. My inner, I have negative 4 times 4x, and it's going to give me negative 16x. And then my last is negative 4 and positive 7, which is going to give me negative 28. So I'm going to combine this, so I get 4x squared, and then together this makes negative 9x minus 28. So that would be my simplified answer. Okay, next for number 3, you're going to combine these, and then I'm going to do my first, which would give me a negative 40p squared. I'm going to do the outer, and that's going to give me plus 15p, and the inner, 6 and negative 8p, is going to give me a negative 48p, and then the last terms, 6 and 3, is going to give me plus 18. Then I'm going to combine these, and I get negative 40p, sorry about that, negative 40p squared minus 33p plus 18. And this would be my answer. So this was multiplying monomials and polynomials. So just keep in mind the acronym for FOIL: first, outer, inner, and last.